to not cover up for their boss and to make sure that he gets to committee and is being held to account for all of this absolute disaster that is of his own making. Thank you.
Statements by members. Déclaration de député. L'honorable député.
The honourable member for Pierre Boucher, Les Patriotes Verchères. Mr. Speaker, after the National Assembly and the Government of Quebec, it's now the economic community that's mobilizing around the idea of a single tax filing for Quebecers. The Federation of Chambers of Commerce for Montreal and Quebec City, the Management Board, the Federation of Independent Business, the Manufacturers and Exporters, the Order of Certified Accountants, and the Young Chambers of Commerce. That's a lot of people, and they're not all separatists. These are people who are asking for one thing only, and that is for the government to put taxpayers at the center of their concern. And what taxpayers want is a single tax file, a single tax return to file. And this can be done while protecting Quebec's sovereignty and Quebec's jurisdiction. So it's quite straightforward. That says it all. Thank you very much.
Mr. Speaker, as parliamentarians, we are on the front lines of defending and safeguarding democracy. We cherish our ability as representatives to speak out about human rights abuses, but this is not the case in every country. Today, I am speaking out about the arbitrary detention of Senator Leila de Lima of the Philippines, who was jailed 2 years ago yesterday. Senator de Lima is the former chair of the Philippine Commission on Human Rights, former Justice Secretary, and was elected as a senator in 2016. Her arrest followed her outspoken criticism of the Philippines' war on drugs and her calls for Congress to investigate the thousands of extrajudicial killings and other human rights violations. The European Parliament has said that the charges against her were fabricated and called for her release, and Amnesty International regards her as a prisoner of conscience. In November, the UNHCR's Working Group on Arbitrary Detention called on Philippine authorities to immediately set her free. Mr. Speaker, I ask members to join me in calling for the immediate release of Senator de Lima. Thank you.
The honourable member for Niagara West.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister doesn't seem to know when to stop failing. After figuring out budgets don't balance themselves and abandoning any pretense of keeping his promises to balance one in our lifetime, the Prime Minister now says that low-income Canadians don't benefit from tax cuts. Maybe that's why he won't give them any, ever. We know, however, as half of Canadians admit, they can't stretch their household budget to the end of every month. Canadians don't benefit from ever-increasing Liberal taxes. But the Prime Minister is intent on making Canadians pay for his failures anyway. He never had to worry about money, so why expect he will care about ours? Right. Struggling Canadians are being forced by this failing Prime Minister to pay more and take home less with higher Liberal payroll taxes and a carbon tax that increases the cost of their fuel, home heating, and groceries. Rather than paying for Liberal failures, Canadians can choose a conservative low-tax plan and conservative leadership to get ahead. Mr. Speaker, Conservatives are fighting for better.
The honourable member for Coquitlam, Port Coquitlam.
Mr. Speaker, the 2019 Canada Winter Games are officially underway in my hometown of Red Deer, Alberta, until March 3rd. With over 3,600 athletes and coaches from coast to coast to coast competing in winter sport. I would like to recognize the 8 participants from my own riding of Coquitlam, Port Coquitlam. Andre Sekou, a biathlon participant, curlers Hayato Sato and Joshua Miki, hockey players Matthew Semenoff and Thomas Milik, Ashley Robb, a ringette player, and speed skaters Noah Hayun and Cheryl Chung. Je remercie leurs familles.
I thank their family and friends for their ongoing support for these superb athletes. Go for it. We're right behind you.
Thank you to their families and friends for supporting these amazing athletes. This is your moment, and we are all cheering you on.
The honourable member for Essex.
On February 7th in Essex, I attended an at-risk youth human trafficking symposium hosted by the Essex OPP with over 200 community service providers in support of their recent community safety initiative, Project GAP. I want to thank all who participated actively in this symposium. It was an important opportunity for many to learn what human trafficking looks like domestically in Canada. Listening to the brave, courageous survivors tell their stories with no filter to educate us on their experiences was powerful and eye-opening. Human trafficking can happen to anyone and is rampant in Canada. Youth, largely girls and young women from all socioeconomic backgrounds, are being targeted in small towns and cities alike and increasingly online. There are even videos and books being sold in our country that create a roadmap for aspiring sex traffickers or pimps. This is not acceptable. Human trafficking is the fastest growing criminal industry in the world, and we must do more to educate Canadians to recognize the signs of all who are being domestically trafficked. I want to thank the Essex OPP detachment led by Inspector Glenn Miller and Staff Sergeant Brad Sakalo, who are always going above and beyond to advocate for our local youth.
The Honourable Member for Laval-les-Îles. Mr. Speaker, on February 19th, in the riding of Laval-les-Îles, fire broke out at Les Serres Sylvain Cléroux, one of the biggest producers of flowers in Quebec. Thanks to the outstanding work of our first responders, over 1 million square feet of greenhouse housing spring seedlings was saved. I'd like to highlight the outstanding work of our police, ambulance, and fire services. They fought the flames under difficult winter conditions. I'd also like to salute the courage of the owners of the greenhouses, Sylvain Cléroux and his staff, for the work they accomplished in order to rebuild this flagship of ornamental agriculture in Laval. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Markham Unionville.
Mr. Speaker, aren't we all tired of paying for this Prime Minister's mistakes? I know I am. I know my constituencies in Markham Unionville are. The Liberals are full of empty promises, like not raising any more taxes for Canadians. Well, as usual, they failed. We keep calling on this Prime Minister to, once and for all, commit to not raising any more taxes. And no surprise, he just keeps spending and making Canadians pay for his mistakes. The facts are clear. Canadians are paying more because of this government. Let's talk about how the job-killing carbon tax will cost $1,000 per household. And what about his $1.6 billion tweet that rolled out the red carpet for almost 40,000 illegal border crossers into Canada? Or the grandparents program that was open and shut within 10 minutes. This government keeps spending and keeps breaking the rules. That is not the Canadian government should do. It is not what the Canadian government will do in 2000.
The Honourable Member for Thérèse de Blainville. Good news from the Winter Games being held in Calgary until March 3rd. Talent, perseverance, and discipline of the 12 athletes from Thérèse de Blainville are worth mentioning, because with determination and many sacrifices from these high-caliber athletes, they are living their dreams and making our communities shine. Our community is proud of them, you can be sure of that. From Lorraine, Edouard Thériault won 2 golds and 1 silver in freestyle skiing. Émilie Villeneuve, also from Lorraine, won the gold with her synchronized skating team. From Blainville, Léa Tessier stood out with a gold medal in short track speed skating. And Gabrielle Deslauriers from Blainville won the gold and a bronze in gymnastics. The competition isn't over. Anything can happen, and we are still dreaming with you. Congratulations, you're an inspiration and an example to all. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Fleetwood, Port Kells.
Okay, Mr. Speaker, there's a great accomplishment to report from our home riding of Fleetwood, Port Kells in Surrey. Enver Creek Secondary in Fleetwood sent their senior robotics team to the VEX competition held earlier this month in nearby Port Moody, where they topped the 25-team field to be ranked first in the world for their programming skills. Now, robotics is a core talent at Enver Creek. Last year, their seniors qualified for the VEX World Championships on the strength of their robot skills score, which was 14th in the world out of 10,000 teams.
Wow.
Congratulations to all the kids, their coach, Ruben Harita, for his outstanding accomplishment, one that's been built on skill and dedication. The students code and test for 8 to 15 hours a week, all on their own time. Enver Creek and the crew are now getting ready for another round of competitions, this time representing Canada in Louisville, Kentucky. Congratulations, well done, and best of luck.
The honourable member for Brantford Brant.
Mr. Speaker, there are many lessons that veterans can teach the youth of today. And that is the premise of a new book by a 17-year-old constituent of mine, Emma Williamson. Emma wrote the book to give the youth of today a better understanding of the sacrifices veterans have made. The book is a collection of messages from veterans and current members of the 56th Field Artillery Regiment in Brantford. None of these veterans and soldiers considers their sacrifice equal to those who have paid the ultimate price of war, but they do deserve our recognition for having served honorably and for having been willing to put themselves in harm's way for our sake. We owe Emma a debt of gratitude for writing this book and reminding us that their sacrifices shall never be ignored and their bravery never overlooked. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them, lest we forget.
Honourable member for Oakville North Burlington.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. When I talk to my friends Karina, Stephen, and others living with disabilities, they tell me the two most important issues to them are employment and housing. I recently traveled with fellow MPs, the RENA Foundation, March of Dimes, Holland Bloorview Rehab Hospital, and others to Israel to learn more about their initiatives around inclusivity and accessibility. It is a pleasure to see some of those folks with us here today. Later today, there will be a reception to highlight the importance of supportive housing for those living with developmental disabilities. I'm proud of our government's commitment to ensure those living with disabilities are supported through the National Housing Strategy. Over the next decade, we will invest $40 billion to build stronger communities. Thanks to all those organizations working to ensure that those most vulnerable in our communities have access to safe, accessible, and inclusive housing.
The honourable member for Montarville. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to read a letter written by students and staff at École Jardin Bainville in Saint-Hubert, paying tribute to their principal, Linda Latour, who's on the verge of retiring. She cares about staff and students at the school, and thanks to her, we are a family where everyone finds their place, can grow, and flourish. Without her, we would never have had such a stimulating learning environment in a brand new establishment where judo plays a key role. She balks at nothing. She is willing to take on any challenge, moving mountains and moving schools. Nothing's impossible for her. Thank you, Ms. Latour. Without you, things would be very different. You're leaving us with a smile, and thanks to you, our hearts are forever warmed.
The honourable member for Milton.
Speaker, February is Black History Month, when we celebrate the immense contributions of Black Canadians. And Black Canadians have overcome significant challenges. Some were brought to Canada as slaves prior to the abolition of slavery in Canada in 1793. Some then came to Canada escaping slavery through the Underground Railroad. And many have come more recently as immigrants, such as those who came to work in the steel plants in my home community of Whitney Pier, Cape Breton. In the face of bigotry and discrimination, they have and continue to overcome. Together, we must continue to fight racism. While much work has been done, there is more work to do. As we honor the contributions of Black Canadians, I would like to recognize the contribution of one in particular. Bruce Ciriato was a conservative activist who campaigned for an important cause in every part of our country. He worked as a staffer in Ottawa and 3 provincial capitals. Bruce died tragically and unexpectedly this past December at the age of 33. He was well known and much loved by our conservative family from coast to coast. This month, we recognize his and the contributions of so many other Black Canadians to our politics, arts and culture, science, and all aspects of Canadian society.
The honourable member for Charleswood, St. James, Assiniboia, Headingley.
Mr. Speaker, last week I had the honor to attend the Military Family Resource Center's annual Yellow Ribbon Fundraising Gala to celebrate and support the important work they're doing for the military families in Winnipeg. Winnipeg's Military Family Resource Center is a pillar of our military community, providing resources, support, and programming to military families, making a difference in the lives of hundreds of men, women, and children. Their hard work and dedication has helped build a community where families at 17 Wing are welcomed and supported. I want to thank everyone who worked tirelessly to organize the successful fundraising gala. Your efforts help support the incredible work they are doing on behalf of families in our community. It is an honor to support this organization and thank them for everything they've done and will continue to do for our community. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for St. Hyacinthe Bagot. Mr. Speaker, my constituents are very community-minded, and they give generously of their time and energy. I'd like to recognize the contributions of some of these outstanding people who get involved in all kinds of activities to make a difference in our communities. There are a lot of them, but I'd like to highlight the exceptional contributions of Micheline Bienvenue and Denis Hintz of the Optimist Club, Linda Chambers and Denise Joyal of the Choral Society, Mélanie Legacy for her involvement in the agricultural world, Céline Lucie Cadieux of the Boisé des Douze Nature Preserve, Claude Marchessault, a community-building pioneer, Rosaire Martin from the municipal world and numerous causes, Claude Millette, a world-renowned sculptor, Robert Pinsonneau of the Philharmonic, Jacques Tétrault and Annabelle Palardy in the area of environmental protection and advocacy. Thanks to them, our community has maintained its traditions of helping and solidarity, and for that, I thank them.
The honourable member for Haldeman Norfolk.
The Prime Minister promised Canadians that 2019 would be the year that he finally balanced the budget. But no surprise, the Prime Minister has failed, and he has no plan and no intention of balancing the budget ever. The Liberals have blown their budget, and Canadians are paying for it. Soon, the Prime Minister will bring in his fourth consecutive deficit budget.
Shame.
You know, permanent Liberal deficits mean that Liberal taxes will go up again, and at a time when Canadians simply can't afford it. According to a recent survey, half of Canadians are barely getting by each month when they should be getting ahead. Instead of paying for costly Liberal failures, Canadians should keep more of the money that they earn. Conservatives offer Canadians a better choice in 2019, a Conservative government that will balance budgets and lower taxes to create well-paying jobs that help Canadians get ahead.
Honourable member for Don Valley West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm very pleased today to congratulate Domi Shi on winning her first Oscar for her animated short film, Bao, last night at the 91st Annual Academy Awards. Ms. Shi wrote and directed this Pixar production about a Chinese-Canadian woman whose dumpling miraculously comes to life. It's delightful. Born in China, she moved to Toronto with her family at the age of 2. Her 8-minute film is set in Toronto and features many of our city's landmarks. She used her upbringing and love of food as inspiration for Bao, which is played in theaters with Incredibles 2. A graduate of the animation program at Ontario's world-renowned Sheridan College, Domi Shi is the first woman to direct a short film at Pixar. In her acceptance speech, she said, "To all the nerdy girls out there who hide behind their school books, don't be afraid to tell your stories to the world." On behalf of all Canadians, please join me in congratulating Domi Shi for her extraordinary work in telling her story. Bravo.
Questions orales, oral questions. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, on February 7th, the Prime Minister said that the Globe and Mail's story about the pressure that he allegedly put on the former Attorney General regarding the SNC-Lavalin matter was, and I quote, false. But we learned from the clerk of the Privy Council on Thursday that there was a concerted effort to interfere in the course of the SNC prosecution by influencing the Attorney General. Can the Prime Minister tell us which version of the facts is the right one? The Right Honourable the Prime Minister. The Leader knows fully well that our government takes the responsibility to defend jobs and create economic growth seriously, and that we will always do that while respecting our institutions as well as the independence of the judiciary. This is a responsibility that we have acknowledged from the very beginning, and it's the work that we're doing to increase prosperity for all Canadians while standing up for our institutions that are so important for our democracy. The Leader of the Opposition. Once again, Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister cannot answer a simple and direct question. The Prime Minister met with the clerk of the Privy Council on December 19th at noon. Immediately afterwards, the clerk called the former Attorney General to tell her that he was rather concerned. What did the Prime Minister tell the clerk when he ordered him to call the former Attorney General? The Right Honourable the Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, at every stage, we did what we have always promised Canadians we would do, and that is to stand up for good jobs, create economic growth, while ensuring the integrity of our legal system, the independence of our judiciary, and the respect for our institutions. That is what this government has always done, and that is what it will continue to do.
Mr. Speaker, he's finally found a line it seems like he might stick with for more than a day, because his story has changed nearly every single day since this scandal first broke, and Canadians deserve answers. Now, the Prime Minister first said that the allegations contained in the Globe and Mail story were false, that no direction or even pressure was applied on the former Attorney General. Now we find out from the clerk of the Privy Council that the Prime Minister's fingerprints are all over this sleazy affair to let his friends off the hook. So once again, if the decision was the former Attorney General's and hers alone to make, why did he try so often to get her to change her mind?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
As I've said from the very beginning, we've consistently and continually stood up for the close to 9,000 jobs at SNC-Lavalin, and indeed, good jobs right across the country. That's what Canadians expect of this government, to stick up for jobs, to create new ones, and to make sure that we're growing our economy in ways that benefit everyone. That's exactly what we'll continue to do, and we will continue to do it in a way that respects the independence of our judiciary, that respects the integrity of our judicial systems, and always respects the rules and norms that govern our institutions.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Whatever the justification that the Prime Minister is going to try to use, he needs to remember one thing. Interfering in a criminal court case is always wrong. The Prime Minister thinks that he's above the law, that he can use his power to get his well-connected friends off the hook. That's not the way Canada works, Mr. Speaker. If the decision was the former Attorney General's to make and hers alone, then why did he continually apply pressure to get her to change her mind?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, once again, the member opposite demonstrates he doesn't quite understand what he's talking about, because, Mr. Speaker, we always take seriously our responsibility of standing up for jobs and growing the economy. But the Justice Department's official backgrounder on remediation agreements states two of the main purposes for remediation agreements is, one, to hold the organization accountable for wrongdoing, and two, reduce the harm that a criminal conviction of an organization could have for employees, shareholders, and other third parties who did not take part in the offense. That is what is in the law, Mr. Speaker.
Order. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The Prime Minister doesn't seem to understand that it's not the Prime Minister's role to direct prosecutors and judges to give special deals to their friends. The independent Crown Prosecutor determined that SNC-Lavalin didn't qualify. The former Attorney General seems to have made up her mind that they didn't qualify, and that's when the Prime Minister and his office went to work. Unwanted and coordinated and sustained pressure to force the former Attorney General to let his well-connected friends off the hook. If the Prime Minister is so sure that he did nothing wrong, will he appear before the Justice Committee to explain his action?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we will consistently stand up for hard-working Canadians right across the country and be not the least bit apologetic about standing up for good jobs wherever they are across this country. I'm pleased also to confirm that later today the government will confirm that the member from Vancouver Granville will be able to address relevant matters at the committee while ensuring that the two active court cases are not jeopardized. We, of course, continue to welcome the studies by the Ethics Commissioner and the Parliamentary Committee.
Order. The honourable member for Victoria.
Prime Minister's called Canadians to, quote, heed very carefully the words of Privy Council Clerk Michael Wernick. Last week, that clerk said, quote, I don't see why the former Attorney General was a solicitor. The matter was never discussed at Cabinet, so she was not giving advice to Cabinet. She was not advising the Prime Minister, close quote. So he concluded solicitor-client doesn't even apply here. Since the Prime Minister says we should heed the clerk, simple question, will he allow the former Attorney General to speak her truth?
The Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, later today the government will confirm the member can address relevant matters at the committee while ensuring, of course, that the two active court cases are not jeopardized. We continue to welcome the studies by the committee and by the Ethics Commissioner.
The honourable member for Victoria.
September 4th, SNC's told no deal. September 17, the Prime Minister and Privy Council Clerk met with the former Attorney General to discuss SNC. December 5th, the Prime Minister's top staffer, Jerry Butts, met with her to discuss it. December 18, the Prime Minister's two top staffers met with her Chief of Staff to discuss it. December 19, the Privy Council Clerk called her to discuss it. And on January 14, the former Attorney General was fired from her role. How can Canadians, reviewing these facts, not conclude there was relentless pressure to have her change her mind?
The Honourable Prime Minister.
Last week, the Clerk of the Privy Council confirmed that at every opportunity, verbally and in writing in December, the Prime Minister made it clear that this was the decision for the Minister of Justice to take. We will consistently and regularly stand up for jobs across this country, and we will do so in a way that respects the independence of our judiciary and the integrity of our institutions.
The Honourable Member for Berthier-Maskinongé. Mr. Speaker, after having changed his story every day for 2 weeks, the Prime Minister spent his weekend telling people that they should listen to the Clerk of the Privy Council. Good. The Clerk of the Privy Council said very clearly that, in his opinion, solicitor-client privilege and cabinet confidence do not apply to the former Attorney General. Mr. Speaker, will the Prime Minister listen to the clerk and allow the former Attorney General to tell Canadians what happened? Will he finally let her speak her truth? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Yes, Mr. Speaker. Later today, the government will confirm that the member will be able to address relevant matters before the Justice Committee without jeopardizing the two court cases. We continue to welcome the Justice Committee's studies and the study of the Conflict of Interest Commissioner. The Honourable Member for Berthier-Maskinongé. Well, the relevant word here is relevant. Mr. Speaker, this isn't the first time Liberals have rewritten their laws for their friends. But this time they're pulling out all the stops. Not only have the Liberals changed the criminal code to help executives of SNC-Lavalin, but after the former Attorney General said no, they decided to try and change our procurement system to help SNC-Lavalin. When their rich friends ask for help, the Liberals rush right in. But when it's ordinary people, the Liberals tell them to wait. When will they be transparent and tell us all the truth? The Right Honourable the Prime Minister. On the contrary, Mr. Speaker, that is exactly what we have been doing. We've been standing up for good jobs, and good jobs, including good jobs at SNC-Lavalin and across the country, for all those jobs that people are working at. Now, with respect to remediation agreements, the official background of the Department of Justice says that there are two main objectives to remediation agreements: hold organizations accountable for their misconducts, and two, which is very important, reduce harm a criminal conviction of an organization could have on staff, shareholders, and other third parties.
Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, here's a very simple and easy question for the Prime Minister to answer. On December 5th, the Prime Minister's principal secretary met with the former Attorney General in the bar at the Chateau Laurier. Now, it appears that the purpose of that meeting was to put even more pressure on the former Attorney General to change her mind and to allow a special deal to be made over the objections of independent Crown prosecutors. Was the Prime Minister aware that his principal secretary was meeting with the former Attorney General on December 5th?
Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, it's important that the record shows that the Director of Public Prosecution Service confirmed that prosecutors in every case, quote, exercise their discretion independently and free from any political or partisan consideration, unquote. Mr. Speaker, it's also important to note that the matter is being looked at by the Conflict of Interest and Ethics Commissioner as well as the Justice Committee. The Justice Committee has members from both sides present. They are working together to ensure that witnesses are appearing. Witnesses are being called. They're answering tough questions from members of Parliament on both sides. I'm not sure why that member is undermining that work. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Well, Mr. Speaker, if the Prime Minister can't answer these questions, perhaps the Government House Leader can answer the question. If she has so much faith in the Justice Committee, now that it's finally starting to allow witnesses to appear, even though originally it seems her office directed the committee members not to allow that to happen, if she has so much confidence and faith in the Justice Committee's work, will Liberal members be supporting this motion before the House today to force the Prime Minister to attend and explain his actions?
Honourable Government House Leader.
It's important that the record show that it was actually this government, under the leadership of this Prime Minister, that increased resources to committees. And, Mr. Speaker, the record should also show that it was that member's party that put out a rule book that would undermine the work of committees. They had no respect for committees over 10 years of Stephen Harper. What's clear is that the Conservatives have chosen...
I'd ask all members for Chilliwack, Hope, and Barrie Innisfil not to interrupt when someone else has the floor. Each side will get its turn. The Honourable Government House Leader has the floor.
Mr. Speaker, what is clear that under 10 years of Stephen Harper, they had no respect for committees. The Conservatives have chosen a new leader, but it remains the party of Stephen Harper that has no regard for committees, and they continue to undermine their work. We on this side know Canadians should have confidence in their institutions. We will let the committee do their important work. Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Richmond-Arthabaska. Mr. Speaker, on September 4th, the Director of the Public Prosecution Service decided that SNC-Lavalin would not be offered a remediation agreement. And then there was a blitz to try and influence the former Attorney General. The Prime Minister on September 17 tried to influence her during a meeting. On December 5th, Mr. Speaker, the advisor and best friend of the Prime Minister also tried to do the same thing, as well as many other people close to the Prime Minister. They all tried the same thing. Did the Prime Minister try and influence the former Attorney General? The Honourable Government House Leader. Mr. Speaker, the member continues to engage in speculation, but let's look at the facts. The Director of the Public Prosecution Service confirmed the prosecutors in every case exercise their discretion independently. The Clerk of the Privy Council also confirmed that at every opportunity, verbally and in writing, the Prime Minister made it clear that this was a decision for the Minister of Justice to take. We, on this side of the House, respect the work of the Justice Committee. We know that the members can do their work, and we need to have confidence in their work. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Richmond-Arthabaska. Mr. Speaker. Every day, the story changes with this government. They're engaging in schemes to try and influence our judiciary. The Director of the Public Prosecution Service made her decision on September 4th, and she confirmed it on October 9th. But despite that, the PM and People close to him tried to change that decision. Will the Prime Minister accept to appear before the Justice Committee and answer all the opposition's questions? The Honourable Government House Leader. Mr. Speaker, the Director of the Public Prosecution Service confirmed that prosecutors in every case exercise their discretion independently and free from any political or partisan consideration. But the Conservatives keep speaking out of both sides of their mouths. In French, they claim that they have no intention of jeopardizing jobs at SNC-Lavalin, as the member for Charles-Bourlon-Saint-Charles said. But in English, the story is very different. They say they want to shut down this company. They have to stop this doublespeak, Mr. Speaker, and they have to come clean with Canadians.
Honourable Member for Milton.
Speaker, on December 5th, Jerry Butts met with the former Attorney General to discuss the SNC-Lavalin matter. On December 6th, the Prime Minister's office and the Prime Minister himself wrote a letter to SNC-Lavalin refusing to meet with SNC-Lavalin anymore and directing them to the Attorney General's office. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to know what happened between December 5th and December 6th that caused the Prime Minister to make that decision.
Honourable Government House Leader.
What's important to note is that members of the Justice Committee have members from all parties recognized in this House in their committee. They are working together to have witnesses appear. Witnesses are answering tough questions. But it's also important to note that the Conservative leader met with representatives of the company. The NDP leader met with representatives of the company. The Conservative deputy leader herself that just asked that question at Justice Committee said, I do not want the impression to be on the record that I think there's anything wrong with meeting with SNC-Lavalin. And at the Justice Committee, the clerk of the Privy Council also confirmed that at every opportunity, verbally and in writing, in December, the Prime Minister...
The Honourable Member for Milton. Order.
Speaker, only the Prime Minister can answer these questions, and that's why we're asking to appear before the Justice Committee. The second question I'd like to know, Mr. Speaker, is this. Between September 4th and October 10th, did the Prime Minister, anyone in the Prime Minister's office, or the Clerk of the Privy Council give assurances to SNC-Lavalin that they would overturn the decision of the former Attorney General?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, what's clear is that member in the Conservative Party continues to undermine the work of the Justice Committee as well as the work of the Commissioner. The Conflict of Interest and Ethics Commissioner is looking at this matter. The Justice Committee is looking at this matter. We are the government that increased resources. So, Mr. Speaker, let the record show that we on this side, we respect the work of committees, we respect the work of offices of Parliament, and we respect the independence of the judicial system. That is a clear contrast from what the Conservatives stand for. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Drummond. Mr. Speaker, Canadians are feeling the impact of climate change, and they're paying the price for the Liberal government's half measures. Last week, the National Energy Board once again recommended that the government go ahead with the Trans Mountain pipeline expansion. Well, we can see what's happening. The Liberals are going to hide behind the NEB in order to justify their bad Trans Mountain decision and to avoid acting to protect the environment. How can Quebecers trust that the Liberals will not do the same thing with Energy East?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Environment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to begin by thanking the Honourable Member for the question. We all know that we campaigned in the last election on a commitment to protect our environment and grow the economy at the same time. That includes steps that are going to get our resources to new markets so our provinces in the western part of our country don't take a haircut on their resources. But I want to highlight for the member that we're moving forward with a number of measures, over 50 to contribute to the fight against climate change. We're putting a price on pollution. We're making the largest investment in the history of public transit in Canada. By 2030, 90% of our electricity will be generated from clean resources, Mr. Speaker. We are in a new age in Canadian politics when it comes to protecting our environment. I invite the NDP to join the train.
The Honourable Member for Skeena-Bulkley Valley.
The Prime Minister has claimed that climate change is the fight of his life. He's claimed that there's no relationship more important to him than that with Indigenous peoples, and he's claimed that he really, really cares about protecting our West Coast. So when the National Energy Board said that the Trans Mountain pipeline will, 1, have major impacts on our climate, 2, significantly damage Indigenous rights and title, and 3, potentially wipe out the southern resident killer whale population. It seems like this decision would be a no-brainer. So this is a test for the Prime Minister. Between these principles he claims to hold and a pipeline he so desperately wants to build, what's it going to be?
Here, here.
Well, Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, we are following the clear guideline that has given to us by the Federal Court of Appeal. We instructed the National Energy Board to undertake this review, and they have given us that report on Friday. We're going to carefully analyze and look at it. At the same time, we are moving forward with meaningful consultation with indigenous communities to understand their concerns and offer accommodation and work with them to find solutions to their outstanding issues. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Charlesbourg-Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister conspired in order to stop the criminal prosecution of a company accused of corruption. My question is about the December 18th meeting between the PMO and the former Attorney General. We know that Gerald Butts and Katie Telford speak on behalf of the Prime Minister. We know that these two individuals, along with the Prime Minister, have absolute power within the Liberal government. Canadians want to know why the Prime Minister asked them to meet with the Chief of Staff of the former Attorney General on December 18th. The Honourable Government House Leader. Mr. Speaker, as I said earlier, the Justice Committee members do their work. Our government is the one that increased resources for committees so that they could do that very important work. The clerk said at the committee last week that the Prime Minister made it clear that this was a decision for the Minister of Justice to take. It is that member who said that he had no intention of jeopardizing jobs at the SNC-Lavalin. But the member for Carleton said something that was absolutely different. Thank you. The Honourable Member for Charlesbourg-Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, it's incredible that she's trying to accuse me. There's one thing that Conservatives want. There's one version they want, and it's the truth, her truth. Now the Prime Minister keeps changing his version of events. There's never one single same version. And on top of it, he's given himself the right to speak on behalf of the former Attorney General. So the former Attorney General is going to be able to speak. Will she be allowed to speak freely at that committee? The Honourable Minister of Justice. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I can confirm, as the Prime Minister just said, that later today the government will confirm that the member will be able to discuss relevant matters before the committee while not jeopardizing the two active court cases. We continue to welcome the committee's studies and the work of the Conflict of Interest Commissioner.
Opposition House Leader.
The Prime Minister can't seem to take no for an answer, and when the former Attorney General said no, she wasn't going to give SNC-Lavalin a deal, he was not happy. So he sent in his two top people, Telford and Butts, the two people who spoke directly for him, to do some persuading. On December 18th, they met with the Chief of Staff to the then Attorney General to discuss the SNC-Lavalin deal. What did Telford and Butts say at that meeting, and what did they threaten would happen if SNC didn't get the deal?
Honourable Government House Leader.
The member continues to confirm that the Conservatives will speculate rather than look at the facts. We on this side have respect for the Justice Committee. We have respect for the Conflict of Interest and Ethics Commissioner because they are doing their important work. We know that both the Justice Committee and the Commissioner are looking at this file. We will not undermine the work of the Justice Committee. We on this side will not undermine the work of officers of the Parliament. We on this side will not undermine the independence of the judicial system like the Conservatives continue to do. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Shocking. Opposition House Leader.
We know the Prime Minister sent in his highest-ranking people who speak on his behalf to pressure and persuade the former Attorney General through her Chief of Staff. Canadians deserve to know what kind of pressure was applied to their Attorney General. Mr. Speaker, the only person who knows is the Prime Minister, and the buck stops with him. So will he come to the Justice Committee? Will he finally stop evading? And will he answer some questions truthfully and openly?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, let's talk about what we know. We know that the Conservative leader met with representatives of the company. We know that the leader of the NDP met with representatives of the company. We know that the Conservative deputy leader herself said at Justice Committee, quote, I do not want the impression to be on the record that I think there's anything wrong with meeting with SNC Lavalin, unquote. Mr. Speaker, we also know that the clerk of the Privy Council confirmed, quote, at every opportunity, verbally and in writing in December, the Prime Minister made it clear that this was a decision for the Minister of Justice to take, unquote. Mr. Speaker, we on this side will continue to respect the independence of the judicial system and the rule of law. Thank you, Mr.
Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Saint-Hyacinthe-Bagot. Mr. Speaker, what a birthday party. The Phoenix fiasco is 3 years old and the Liberal government still hasn't found a solution. This nightmare for public servants has lasted 3 years and the government refuses to say when it will be solved. An internal government memo talks about 10 years. People are still having serious problems getting paid. There are families that feel abandoned. When will the Liberals provide real solutions? When will they pay people what they are owed? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, I completely agree. The public servants of Canada deserve to be paid on time and accurately for their work. But we have improved things we have dealt with about 70,000 cases. We're continuing to do this very important work. We won't stop till everything is solved.
Mr. Speaker, it's been 3 years since the ill-fated Phoenix rollout, and we're still hearing the same answers we heard 3 years ago when the whole thing started. And it's for shame. Federal workers have lost homes. It's put strain on their family. And even some simple things, Mr. Speaker, like just changing the law so that they don't have to pay back the gross pay on the net pay that they received, haven't been done. Now, when SNC Lavalin wanted legal changes to get out of criminal charges, that got done, and in fact, they rolled out the red carpet. So why should workers continue to have their lives put on hold while this government is distracted protecting their well-connected buddies?
Honourable Minister of Public Services and Procurement.
Mr. Speaker, as I said, since January of 2018, the backlog has gone down by 160,000 cases, Mr. Speaker. We are doing whatever we possibly can to make sure our public servants are paid on time and accurately. By May of this year, all the departments will be serviced by pay cards. Employees are satisfied by this movement. It was an employee-generated idea. This will be resolved. We will stabilize this system. Yes, it's taking longer than we wish, but rest assured, this is my #1 priority.
Honourable Member for Cambridge.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Canadians living with disabilities face unique challenges when it comes to finding accessible, affordable housing. In my riding of Cambridge, there's been significant investment in projects targeted to help, like the new accessible, affordable housing at 175 Hespeler Road. Could the minister responsible for housing tell the House how Canada's national housing strategy is helping people living with disabilities find places to call home that meet their unique needs?
Honourable Minister of Social Development.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to the member for Cambridge for highlighting the challenges that people with disabilities in Canada face when it comes to finding an accessible home. But that's why we launched the first ever national housing strategy a year ago. That's why the National Co-Investment Fund requires 25% of the newly constructed or repair units to be fully accessible. And that's why we'll continue to fight very hard so that every Canadian with disabilities has access to a safe, affordable and accessible home.
Honourable Member for St. Albert, Edmonton.
Speaker, Michael Wernick testified that on December 19th he met with the Prime Minister, and immediately following this meeting he picked up the phone, called the former Attorney General to check in on the SNC Lavalin matter. What instructions did the Prime Minister provide Wernick to initiate this call?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Speaker, once again, we on this side respect the work of the Justice Committee. We on this side have increased resources for all committees because we know that they do important work. We on this side will also defend and uphold the principles of the judicial independence as well as the rule of law. We know that the matter is being looked at by the Conflict of Interest and Ethics Commissioner, and the Justice Committee. We also know that we on this side will fully cooperate with these two investigations because they are doing important work. What is clear is that member of the Conservative Party continues to undermine their work. We will not do that on this side. Canadians can have confidence in their institutions.
Honourable member for St. Albert, Edmonton.
Speaker, the Prime Minister conspired to stop the criminal trial of a company charged with bribery. Canadians deserve transparency. Canadians deserve answers about this Prime Minister's involvement in this sordid affair. So again, what did the Prime Minister say to Wernick that prompted him to pick up the phone and call the former Attorney General to check in on the SNC Lavalin matter? What did he say?
I must remind the honourable member for St. Albert, Edmonton, to be judicious in choice of words. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, that member just confirmed that the Conservative Party and its members will continue to speculate rather than look at the facts. That's something that Canadians know very well, and that's exactly why they are sitting in the opposition benches. That is the party that chose to undermine committees. They put out a rule book to make sure that they could undermine and destroy the work of committees. We on this side will not do that, Mr. Speaker. We are the government that increased resources to committees. We know that they do important work. We know that members on both sides are asking witnesses to appear. We know witnesses are answering. Let them do their work, Mr. Speaker.
Hear, hear. Order. The honourable member for Barrie Innisfil.
We know that Michael Wernick spoke to the former Attorney General on the afternoon of December 19th. He said he called her about the SNC Lavalin file. Wernick also said the former Attorney General advised the Prime Minister on September 17th that she wasn't going to intervene. So why did the Prime Minister instruct the clerk to make the phone call if she had already made up her mind?
Honourable Government House Leader.
Speculation, Mr. Speaker. That is speculation. Mr. Speaker, we know very well that the clerk of the Privy Council confirmed when he was at Justice Committee last week that at every opportunity, verbally and in writing in December, the Prime Minister made it clear that this was a decision for the Minister of Justice to take. Mr. Speaker, we know that there is members of Parliament from both sides of the aisle that sit on Justice Committee. We know that they're working together to have witnesses appear. We know that witnesses are appearing and answering tough questions. Mr. Speaker, we on this side know that Canadians should have confidence in their institutions. We will not undermine that work because we know they're working hard. The Conservatives should stop their doublespeak.
Honourable member for Barrie Innisfil.
There certainly isn't speculation, Mr. Speaker, because those were Wernick's words. Canadians need to know what is not being said by the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister conspired to stop the criminal trial of a company charged with bribery. It's clear that there was a concerted and sustained effort by the Prime Minister and his senior operatives to make the former Attorney General change her mind. If we're not going to get answers in this place, will the Prime Minister appear before the Justice Committee and finally tell the truth?
Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, as I will continue to say, that members of the Justice Committee are working together from both sides. They are asking witnesses to appear. Witnesses are appearing, and they are responding to questions. We on this side, Mr. Speaker, will always have confidence in our committee system. We know that it's important work that they do. We know that the Conflict of Interest and Ethics Commissioner is also looking at this file. And Mr. Speaker, we on this side will not undermine that work. That is a clear contrast between the Conservatives and the Liberals. We will not undermine committees. We will not undermine officers of Parliament. We will not undermine the independence of the justice system. Thank you.
Honourable member for Essex.
Well, it's now clear, Mr. Speaker, Liberals have given up on GM workers and their families in Oshawa without even trying. Do you know what the government did in the U.S.? U.S. representatives fought and succeeded in pressuring GM to extend the operation of the Detroit-Hamtramck plant for the life of the current collective agreement. That is the bare minimum that workers in Oshawa have been asking for, and the Liberals didn't even try to secure that with GM. Canadian workers deserve better than this. Layoffs start in 2 weeks. Why won't this Prime Minister fight for their jobs?
The Honourable Minister of Innovation.
Mr. Speaker, we fight day in and day out for our auto workers.
That's right.
Since 2015, we've seen historic investments of $6 billion in the automotive sector because it's our Prime Minister that's made the automotive sector a priority for our government. We've seen significant investments in the auto supplier sector, and this has resulted in thousands of jobs that have been created. You want to compare and contrast to the Conservatives because in the first 3 years of their mandate, they lost 50,000 jobs in the automotive sector and 20,000 before the recession even hit. And we've seen thousands of jobs created since 2015. We'll continue to fight for the auto workers, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member for Windsor West.
This month, the NDP secured a request to have General Motors CEO Mary Barra to appear before a committee to answer questions on the closure of the Oshawa plant. Instead, the Liberals cut a private deal to excuse her, and now we get a lobbyist. And this is because the Prime Minister couldn't even get his own meeting, and so much for not interfering with committees. Meanwhile, U.S. political pressure gets a new deal to extend plant operations, and now Canada is left out in the cold. Why are the Liberals letting CEO Barra off the hook? Would the Prime Minister care to explain to Canadians his failures for Oshawa versus the workers of Detroit Hamtramck that are getting a new life on their jobs?
Honourable Minister of Innovation.
Mr. Speaker, I went to Detroit and met with Mary Barra just a few weeks ago and made it very, very clear that they're making a big mistake by leaving Oshawa. We as a government will not make that mistake and turn our back onto the workers. We'll continue to defend auto workers. And we've been very clear with Jerry Dias as well when it comes to Unifor that any solution that they have between the unions and GM that we'll be at the table as part of the solution. We'll continue to defend the auto workers. We'll continue to invest in this very important sector, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands and Rideau Lakes.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister said that Canadians should listen to the Clerk of the Privy Council. During the appearance at committee, the Clerk said the Cabinet never discussed SNC Lavalin. However, the Minister of National Revenue said during a radio interview that the decision regarding SNC was made at Cabinet. Well, simple question, who's telling the truth?
Good question. Well, Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, there are members of Parliament from both sides of the aisle that sit on the Justice Committee. Mr. Speaker, that member, very new to this place, should also know that those members have come together to ask for a list of witnesses. Mr. Speaker, it's also important to know that witnesses are appearing at Justice Committee. Members of Parliament from both sides are asking tough questions. Witnesses are answering those questions. Mr. Speaker, that member also knows that the Conservatives had a rule book to undermine committees. We have not done such a thing. We had to increase resources to committee to ensure that committees can do their important work. Canadians can have confidence in their institutions.
The Honourable Member for Louis Saint-Laurent. Well, that answer is interesting but has nothing to do with the question. When the #1 bureaucrat in Canada appeared before committee, he said the issue of SNC-Lavalin was never addressed by Cabinet. But this is in direct contradiction with the Minister of Revenue who said on radio, there was a discussion and we made a decision. Now, who is telling the truth? The House Leader, Mr. Speaker, my answer was completely relevant. There were questions put in the committee. They asked for witnesses. The witnesses appeared and answered questions. We should have confidence in members of the Justice Committee. We, on this side of the House, we have confidence in them, but on the other side, that's not the case. The Honourable Member. Mr. Speaker, just a few days ago, they were talking about fishing expeditions and witch hunts. But now, the former Attorney General will appear. But if on the other side, they're so open, will they allow the Prime Minister to testify? The Honourable House Leader. Mr. Speaker, we respect committee work. We have confidence in the members who sit on Justice Committee and on all other committees. We will allow them to conduct their work. We respect their work, which is not the case with the Conservatives. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, there is no more important job than to care for our loved ones.
We welcome caregivers to Canada every year, mainly from the Philippines, to care for our children and our parents. Yet, as they care for our families, they leave their own behind, often enduring a painful separation of years before they can be reunited. I have met these caregivers and heard their stories. Canada needs to do a better job. Could the Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada tell us what the government is doing to reunite caregiver families?
Great question.
Honourable Minister.
Thank you to my colleague for her tireless advocacy on behalf of caregivers. Mr. Speaker, thousands of families rely on caregivers to care for their loved ones. But caregivers have often faced too many barriers to reunite with their own families. Our government is introducing a program that will provide a faster path for permanent residency, better protections against abuse, and for the first time, we will allow caregivers to bring their own spouses and children with them. Our government has eliminated the caregiver backlog left behind by the Conservatives from 5 years to 12 months, and we will always stand for family reunification, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Carleton.
After the Prime Minister moved the former Attorney General out of her position, she wrote a letter to the public saying that she had spoken truth to power. She rose recently and said she would like to speak her truth to all Canadians. So far, the Prime Minister has been silencing her, invoking solicitor-client privilege, real or imagined. Today, he says he will finally allow her to speak, but only say things that he considers relevant. Will he remove these obstacles to her free speech and let her speak?
Honourable Minister of Justice.
Once again, I confirm what the Prime Minister said earlier today in question period, that the member will be able to address relevant matters in front of the committee while ensuring that the two active court cases are not jeopardized. We continue, Mr. Speaker, to welcome the work of the Justice Committee as well as that of the Ethics Commissioner.
Honourable Member for Disnethi, Mississippi, Churchill River.
Mr. Speaker, when the Liberals don't support the RCMP and community safety programs, people and communities suffer. In Pelican Narrows, the Community Safety Officer Program is responsible for recruiting and training officers to do nightly patrols, but they lack the resources to bring in the talent they need. People's safety should be a priority, and yet this Liberal government is failing to act. When will the Liberals commit to the safety of the people in northern Saskatchewan and dedicate funding for their community safety programs?
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, I have met with representatives of a variety of communities across the country about community safety initiatives, including special constables and other forms of augmenting regular police service. I am certainly happy to meet with any community in the honourable members' riding if they have concerns that they wish to pursue. But I would note that for the First Nations policing program, we have just made the largest investment in Canadian history to try to bring better policing services to Indigenous communities across this country.
The member for Hastings, Lennox and Addington.
Mr. Speaker, climate change is real and the cost of inaction is enormous. It is disappointing that while climate change is having a real impact on the health and well-being of Canadians, Conservative politicians are wasting millions of taxpayer dollars fighting climate action in court.
Shame.
Meanwhile, the party opposite still has no plan to protect the environment. Can the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of the Environment please update the House on the actions our government is taking to fight climate change while growing our economy?
Hear, hear.
Thank you.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank the honourable member for his hard work and tireless advocacy to help protect our climate. Economists are virtually unanimous that the best thing we can be doing to transition to a low-carbon economy is to put a price on pollution that'll bring emissions down and put more money in the pockets of Canadian families. But it's only one of 50 measures that we're taking to fight climate change, along with phasing out coal so we can get to 90% of generation of our electricity by clean sources by 2030. We're improving public transit with the largest investment in the history of Canada, and we're investing in energy efficiency, clean technologies, and green infrastructure. While some Conservatives want to oppose meaningful action on climate change, like Doug Ford and Leader of
the Honourable Member for Carleton.
The Prime Minister's been speaking widely about the SNC-Lavalin affair, telling his side of the story, not concerned at all about court proceedings, privilege, or cabinet confidence. Apparently, that doesn't matter when he's telling his side of the story. But now he's saying that he's going to constrain his former Attorney General's testimony by limiting it to what he considers to be relevant matters. Can he confirm if relevant matters will include all communications between his office and the former Attorney General?
Your Justice.
Later today, the government will confirm that the member can address relevant matters at the committee while ensuring that 2 active court cases are not jeopardized. Mr. Speaker, we'll continue to work with the studies by the Justice Committee and the Ethics Commissioner.
The Honourable Member for Rivière-du-Nord. Mr. Speaker, everyone agrees. Former Lavalin executives who have committed crimes should end up in court. But it's almost as if everyone here thought that thousands of workers should also pay for the crimes of a handful of individuals. The company has lost $1.6 billion since the beginning of this crisis. The next stage, Mr. Speaker, is to cut jobs, have a fire sale, and open themselves up to a foreign takeover. Will the Attorney General take charge of this file? The Honourable Minister of Justice, Mr. Speaker, as I've said on several occasions in this House, the question is a difficult one. There are 2 court proceedings underway, and I cannot comment on them. The Honourable Member. Well, Mr. Speaker, the government's first responsibility is to protect the people. It's revolting to watch opposition parties harming SNC-Lavalin workers, but that's their choice and they'll pay for it at the next election. The present Attorney General is responsible and he has the authority to take charge of this file and negotiate a remediation agreement to make sure that those at fault pay and not thousands of workers. When will he take charge of this file? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, as Attorney General for Canada, I cannot influence court proceedings. It would be very inappropriate of me to comment.
The Honourable Member for Brampton East.
Speaker, many young Canadians dream of home ownership, yet that dream is becoming more difficult every day. Many residents are concerned that the mortgage stress test have made home ownership for the first time extremely difficult and have contributed to a slowdown in the housing market. Will the Finance Minister please update this House on what measures the government is exploring to help Canadians become homeowners? Thank you. Thanks, Rob.
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I'm happy to say that we've been very focused on ensuring that our housing market is effective so that Canadians can not only recognize that their investment in their home is stable, but also that they can have an aspiration to acquiring a home for them and their families. Over the last 3 years, we've put in measures for affordable housing across our country. We've put in measures to make sure that people are protected, and we will continue to think about how we can ensure that middle-class Canadians have the possibility to raise their families and have home ownership part of that dream. Thank you.
Member for Scarborough-Guildwood is rising on a point of order.
On the following motion, which says, recognizing that 2019 marks the 10th anniversary of the end of armed conflict in Sri Lanka, and honoring the tens of thousands of lives lost and countless victims displaced during this 26-year war, and recognizing further that the government of Sri Lanka has made insufficient progress in implementing its commitments on reconciliation, accountability, and transitional justice, and that frustrations persist among those seeking to heal the wounds of all those who've suffered. Therefore, the House of Commons calls on the government of Sri Lanka to fully implement its obligations under the Human Rights Council Resolution 30/1 and to set a clear timeline-bound strategy for ensuring a process of accountability that has the trust and confidence of the victims, including the families of those who have disappeared. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Does the Honourable Member have the unanimous consent of the House to move the motion? Agreed. The House is... No, there's no unanimous consent. Excuse me. Tabling of documents. Order. The honourable member for Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan, is rising on a point of order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I was pleased to support the initiative just read out by my colleague. It's interesting that it came from him, but I want to read out a slightly different resolution, and maybe this will have the full support of the House. First of all, that the House call on the Government of Canada to strongly push for the full implementation of Human Rights Council Resolution 30/1 within a clearly specified time frame. Calls on the Government of Sri Lanka to implement Resolution 30/1 within a clearly specified time frame, recognizing that the resolution was co-sponsored by the Government of Sri Lanka, and invites the Minister of International Development to table a report in the House at her earliest convenience explaining development projects funded in Sri Lanka